justification is an experience. What I would like to portray to you and have been so in-depth about is to convey the experience, to convey the thought process, to convey the touch that is needed for entrance into justification. Justification has to be entered into. Justification is a state of mind, you could say, that one has to enter into, and not to think any kind of weirdness, to think of it in the sense of when you go to a basketball game, you're in the state of a mind of a basketball game. When you're watching something, you're in the state of the mind of what you're watching. When you're cooking, when you're doing anything, when you're in a conversation, you're in the state of mind of what you're doing, cooking, or conversing about. That's what that means. Justification is a state of mind. It is a state of being where when once involved, the experience consumes the conversation to where then a new experience blossoms. And everything that I just said, everything is literally already there in the Bible. It's there in the Bible, and it's framed as a parable. Luke 13:21. Looking at Luke 13, chapter 21. Luke 13:21 reads, Luke chapter 13 and verse 21 reads, "It is like leaven which a woman took and hid in 3 measures of meal till the whole was leavened." This is what is the kingdom of God like. What is the kingdom of God like? The kingdom of God is like leaven which a woman took and hid in 3 measures of meal till the whole was leavened. Now this is exactly what I just said. The leaven here, and what is to blossom, and what is to flower, and what is to overpower what already exists, is what is called the kingdom of God. This parable, this illustration, is letting us know that the kingdom of God is not actually a real thing. Now, we can say that what is to leaven inside of the earth, right? Because we believe, or we are trained to believe, that the kingdom of God is a literal thing that at a point in time will come down out of nowhere and then refresh or regenerate the earth and spring forth the kingdom of the child of peace. We could say that. Until we actually define what to the Bible leaven means. What does leaven mean? I actually put this in a blog post, and that post actually inspired my thought process for this time, this meeting. And so turning to the book of Matthew 16, 11, and 12. Matthew 16, 11, and 12, because the Bible explains itself. Matthew 16, 11, and 12 reads, "How is it that you do not understand that I spake it not to you concerning bread, that you should be aware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees? Then understood they how that he bade them not beware of the leaven of bread, but of the doctrine of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees." So as we have been studying this entire time, and as we have been pointing out how the Bible associates meanings within itself for itself, it's just still no different. The Bible we don't have to guess what leaven means. We don't have to guess what leaven means, right? We don't have to guess. Bible tells us. And of course, there are different places you can go. Instead of saying the doctrine of the Pharisees or the Sadducees, it says the hypocrisy of the Pharisees and the Sadducees, which hypocrisy just, falls back down to their philosophy or to their doctrine. So it all means the same thing. The leaven, right? The leaven that the kingdom of God is. We know that this is not the earth, that a literal kingdom is to flour or leaven up, because leaven to the Bible does not mean earth, it means doctrine or philosophy. So the kingdom of God being as leaven, entering in and flowering up, the leaven is a doctrine. The kingdom of God, in essence, is a doctrine that is supposed to enter within and then embolden and flower up what is within. So all of this matters because what we are learning from the Bible does not match up to what we traditionally understand, or to what our opinions of what we traditionally understand are framed on or are framed after. Bringing in the Gospel of Thomas, bringing in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, I brought those in to show the state of mind at when these things were being officially, canonized, of the different groups or sects that were out there. And each one of them understood the phenomena a little bit differently. And what we know from Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and the narrative attached to them, well, that belongs to the sect that ended up winning the battle. Winning the battle. What didn't win the battle was understandings similar to Gospel of Mary Magdalene or the Gospel of Thomas. What didn't win the battle, and I'm not saying that these are it, because once you dig into them, there is a level of spirituality that diverts from the Bible, and that diverts from what we actually know or believe traditionally. So what is believed traditionally diverts from the Bible. These specific writings also divert from the Bible. My main concern is Bible. But the ones that were not accepted for canon, they have a level of philosophy in them that when carefully looked at, and when not getting so drawn into the Gnostic side of their perspective, into the mysticisms and such, a small trace of what the Bible is actually talking about is in them, and that makes them part of that reality. Being part of that reality, the Bible talking about justification being a movement of redefining traditionally the definition of salvation. Salvation as we know it occurring from the figure or the demigod, or however we want to think about it. The Bible doesn't associate salvation with that. The Bible's definition of salvation is deliverance from within, hence the parable. Salvation to the Bible's mind does not occur without, and does not occur from above to below. Salvation to the Bible, deliverance to the Bible, rescue, redemption to the Bible occurs within. Occurs within and flows outward. It occurs within and flows outward. The inward work that is to take place is described in this parable as that leaven. That leaven is doctrine. That doctrine that is to flower up inside of our conversation is called Emmanuel. The doctrine that is to flower up and to leaven up our conversation, that is to blow up our conversation into a new dimension, into transcending its present traditional thoughts and feelings, is called Emmanuel. Emmanuel, as a doctrine, means God within us. The us is not us personally. The us is us devotionally. The body that we cannot see, the body of our faith. Emmanuel is to flow into, blow up, flower up our conversations, thoughts, and feelings by the philosophy God within us. God within us is the promise of the new covenant. The promise of the new covenant being, I will write in them my law, and in their inward parts I will be their God, and they shall be my people. They will know me, and no longer will have to say, know the Lord. That means a personal experience. A personal experience is what is to separate the one from the other. Personal experience. How? Personal experience by what is engraved within. What is to be engraved within? I will write my law within their hearts and within their minds. Now, the law that is to be written within the heart and the mind, Isaiah 51:4, again, that falls back down to Emmanuel. Emmanuel. Emmanuel is the kingdom of God. The message that we are receiving and having a dialogue over this morning, this faithful Wednesday morning, it is beyond crucial, it's beyond necessary, it is beyond important to our growth and development as human beings, and also as devotional creatures. But I also have a message for pastors, for ministers, and for leaders, and for you too, who are the pastor, the minister, and the leader of what is within you, your soul temple. Head on over to my website, linwoodjacksonjr.com, click the affiliate link, leading you to Church Source, and browse through their catalog. They have beautiful Bibles there. They have beautiful Bibles. They have beautiful resources for you to tune in to your personal devotional conversations daily habit. This website, you can browse through it and observe what they're doing for you, for us, to make understanding our need to know the scriptures that much more important. So browse through their catalog, observe their resources, and whatever you do, do for the sake of growing your personal devotional conversation. This is relevant. This is relevant because I haven't forgotten, our initial beginning was charity. I haven't forgotten our initial beginning being marriage. Emmanuel is to be the mediator between our devotional conversation and the living God's devotional conversation. Emmanuel is to be the highway whereby our conversation travels upward to, as we have reviewed, quote unquote, heaven. Emmanuel is to be the priest between our human being and the being of our conversation, ordaining and making official their marriage. The process of justification is just this. And all of this matters because depending on how serious we are about our conversation's condition, depending on how serious we are about our human condition, we have to wake up. We have to wake up and accept the concern that is within the scriptures. And that may be difficult to do because when we take on our belief and when our conversation is conceived within the religious world, we lose sight of why we are actually caring for the things within the Bible. The religious world then becomes the Bible. And we no longer examine with an empty mind the things that are within the scriptures, but we examine with a full mind the things that are within the religious world. And the things that are within the religious world are not the things that are within the Bible. And the perception that is within the religious world and the minds for which that perception is born and endorsed within the religious world, the Bible lets us know in the book of Ecclesiastes chapter 3 that they do not have a right, they have no right to understand what is in here. Ecclesiastes chapter 3 says that this is their curse. And this bodes well with John 17, of where it says, I pray not for the world, but for them which thou hast given me. So we need to make a decision. And the decision is, we already know it. Are we going to be of the world or not of the world? Are we going to live in the world and not be of the world? Or are we going to collect it all? Better context now, we can understand that the world in reference that I just spoke about, the world in reference within the scriptures, it is not the secular world. This is the world of religion. So the one in the world that our faith is conceived to believe is all in all says that there is no prayer for the world. So we actually have to use our brains for a second. Because if this one is saying, I am not of the world, and yet only the religious world is pumping a figure to us, we ought to know a little bit better. Because the one that is spoken, the one that is speaking, has a philosophy called Emmanuel. his philosophy does not endorse any bit of affection or affinity to the religious world. To this individual, there is no prayer for the religious world. What does that mean? That means that the philosophies, the conundrums, the theories, the rites, the ceremonies, the baptisms, all associated for divine favor and for righteousness within the religious world, there is no benefit to them, there is no good in them, and there is no reason to observe them. Hard reality from the real man. What does matter, though, are the mind and the people that are in there. So if we are with this individual fully, then we have to be where his mind is. Perfecting and reforming our personal religion, or perfecting and reforming our personal devotional conversation, is the point and the concern of the philosophy that is within the Bible. Head on over to my website and check out the book, Perfecting and Reforming Personal Religion. This book is a must-have for us who take serious our mental, inward, and devotional health. And so the need to break down these things in the past couple episodes was just to get on common ground and to make an non-formal, creating words, to make a non-formal approach that we are not accustomed to traditionally, to expose it as being the actual formal approach of the Bible, to get us accustomed to it. Because our faith needs to wake up. And more than that, we need to allow our faith to shake and to wake up. We have a connection to the scriptures for a specific reason. We turn to the Bible for a specific reason. We didn't go anywhere else. We didn't even go within our own self. But there was something within the scriptures that led us to it. And there was a figure within the scriptures that led us to it. And there were words that moved us within the scriptures that led us to it. Thereafter, we belonged to the Bible, to the words. The process of justification is a process of realizing why we have turned to the Bible. The process of justification is a process of realizing, again, is that even a word? I'm making it a word. Of realizing the reason why we have turned to the scriptures. Now, we didn't turn to the Bible for deception. We didn't turn to the Bible for delusion. We didn't turn to the Bible to put a hope on something that could not be achieved. What is within us cried out for something that is within the Bible and within what we heard. Great. That's fine. But there is going to come a point in time, and even now may be that time, where just as it says, in these mountains you will not honor the Father. Remember how it says that in the book of John chapter 4. Even in these mountains will you not honor the Father. I'm saying the same thing. And it's not me that's saying it, it's Bible that's saying it. The mountains that we are accustomed to, and in the Bible, mount means church, temple, sanctuary, synagogue. The mountains where we are observing the quote-unquote Father are not the mountains where our faith needs to be. The Bible has a mountain of its own. The scriptures are given on the foundation of an already existing mountain. The process of justification is the process of allowing us to understand the being within, and for the being within to understand who we are. It is marriage. It is marriage. And if we will take this journey of justification seriously, we have to take seriously the condition of our faith and to what we are feeding it. Just as we have to take into consideration what we're feeding our body, how we are or are not exercising our body. We have to take in the same condition. We have to check the same condition and take into consideration that same body of our faith. The process of justification, along with the central concern within the Bible, is for the condition of the conversation. It is for the condition of the conversation. Our conversation is to be well. Our conversation is not naturally well. Our conversation, when conceived within the religious world, is conceived poor. The process of leavening the conversation is a process of adding wealth to it. And the wealth that is to be added is a doctrine. The doctrine that is to be added is Emmanuel. The Emmanuel that is to be added is a philosophy called God within us. The philosophy called God within us is a process of engraving the living God's name and devotional character within the name and the character of our conversation's conscience. This process of engraving is for the well-being of our human being. There is going to come a point in time where Revelation chapter 13 will be fulfilled in full. There will be a beast rising up to conquer as the former beast before it, and in a way that manipulates the conscience of the then citizens of the earth or world in a universal fashion. We may not be alive for that. Some of us may be on the precipice for when that takes place. But there are things that we can do now to prepare ourselves and for those that are coming up to understand how to combat and how to properly handle themselves in that time when that takes place. Visit my website and check out the book, Heaven's Genuine and Counterfeit Ministry, to get a deeper look into this subject. Full-on introductory course on understanding the Revelation chapter 13 and the illustration that is within it. And not just that, the book opens, the first half of the book is about showing the genuine philosophy that is within the Bible, so that by the time we reach the Revelation chapter 13 and we see that non-genuine faith, we can then understand the difference. And understanding the difference, we can make a change today. So check out my website, visit the book, Heaven's Genuine and Counterfeit Ministry, and enjoy the narrative, and also enjoy understanding what it is that is actually at the heart of the controversy within the Bible. So when we are hearing that the kingdom of God is like leavening up, we are hearing that the kingdom of God is like a doctrine leavening up. Now, this is the same thing that is said in 1 Corinthians chapter 5 and 7 and 8. 1 Corinthians chapter 5 verses 7 and 8. 1 Corinthians chapter 5, 7 and 8 reads, "Purge out therefore the old leaven, that you may be a new lump, as ye are unleavened. Keep the feast, not with old leaven, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth." Now, the same illustration here. What is to leaven is actually to simmer down. To simmer down from, what does it say? To simmer down from malice and wickedness to sincerity and truth. Now, these words are figurative, but what they're illustrating is that our conversation is naturally filled with malice and wickedness. Our conversation is naturally filled with a devious spirit within it, a wandering mind, a hardened heart. What is to enter into that is to filter out all of that to sincerity and truth. And this is actually said in another way, same illustration, but said in another way in Ephesians 4 more directly. Ephesians 4:22 and 23. Ephesians 4:22 and 23 reads that you put off concerning the former conversation the old man, which is corrupt according to the deceitful lusts, and be renewed in the spirit of your mind. Now, what we just read in 1 Corinthians is the same thing we are reading here. That old leaven, 1 Corinthians 5:8, that old leaven in malice and wickedness is that old man, Ephesians 4:22, which is corrupt according to the deceitful lust. Same concept. So we're hearing of leaven in Corinthians, but in Ephesians, the leaven and the experience is broken down to the conversation and what is within it. But instead of that old leaven, gather to yourself the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. Instead of that old conversation, Ephesians 4:23, be renewed in the spirit of your mind. Same concept. Same concept, driven by the figurative illustration of leaven. The kingdom of God comes to you, not physically. Nothing will be appearing from the sky. Nothing will be appearing from below upwards. The kingdom of God has appeared to you mentally and inwardly through your experience with Emmanuel, through your experience with the words within the Bible, through your experience putting into practice whatever principles you learn when privately studying the scriptures. The kingdom of God is a dispensation of learning. And the leaven that is to appear from that learning is to swell up our conversation to the point where it can puff it back down into a new creation. It is all about creation. The process of justification is about creation. Problem is that we are getting in the way of that by what we allow our conversation to consume. So if we can regulate our diet, if we can quit the opinions of Pastor so-and-so and quit the opinions of self, put down the belief, superstitious, mystical, mythological, theoretical, quit it all, patiently and temperately though. Cold turkey won't work with this. Patiently and temperately, allowing the Bible to be what it's supposed to be, we will experience the kingdom of God. We will experience that leavening. We will win justification.